History's first empire rose out of a hot, dry landscape without uh, rainfall to nourish crops, without trees or stones for building. But in spite of all this, its inhabitants built the world's first cities with monumental architecture and large populations, and they built it entirely out of mud. Summer occupied the southern part of modern Iraq in the region which was called Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia means between two rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. Around 5000 BC, early Sumerians used irrigation channels, dams, and reservoirs to redirect river water and farm large areas of previously dry land. Agricultural communities like this were slowly springing up around the world. But Sumerians were the first to take the next step. Using clay bricks made from river mud, they began to build multi storied homes and temples. They invented the wheel, uh, potter's wheel, for turning mud into household goods and tools. Those clay bricks gave rise to the world's first cities, probably around 4500 BC. At the top of the city's social ladder were priests and priestesses who were considered nobility, then merchants and craftspeople, then farmers, and then enslaved people. The Sumerian people consisted of distinct city states that operated like small nations. They were loosely linked by language and spiritual belief, but lacked centralized control. The earliest cities were Uruk, Ur, and Eridu, and eventually there were a dozen cities. Each had a king who served a role somewhere between a priest and a ruler. Sometimes they fought against each other to conquer new territories, and each city was dedicated to a patron deity considered the city's founder. The large and the most important building on the city was the patron god's home, which was a temple designed as a stepped pyramid. Around 3200 BC, they began to expand their reach. The potter's wheel found a new home on chariots and wagons. They built boats out of reeds and palm leaves with linen sails that carried them vast distances by the sea. To supplement scarce resources, they built a trade network with rising kingdoms like Egypt and Ethiopia, importing gold, silver, and cedar wood. Trade was unlikely impetus for the invention of the world's first writing system. It started as a system for accounting for these Sumerian merchants, conducting with traders abroad. And after a few hundred years, the early pictogram system was turned into a script. They drafted the first writing laws and created the first school system, and they were teaching the craft of writing, and uh, they were the ones who brought in bureaucracy and taxes. In the schools, scribes studying from dawn to dusk, from childhood well into adulthood. They learned accounting, mathematics, literature, hymns, myths, proverbs, and fables, magic spells, and the first epics on clay tablets. Some of those tablets told the story of a king who was also the subject of mythical tales. And by the third millennium BC, Sumer was no longer the empire around, or even in Mesopotamia. Waves of nomadic tribes poured into the region from north and east. Some newcomers looked up to them, adopting their way of life and uh, writing and expressing their own languages. In 2300 BC, the Akkadian king Sargon conquered these Sumerian city-states, but Sargon respected their their culture, and he made sure that those people and his people could exist side by side. Other invading groups focused only on looting and destruction. Even as the Sumerian culture spread, a steady onslaught of invasion killed the Sumerian people by 1750 BCE. Afterward, Sumer uh, disappeared back into the desert dirt, not to be rediscovered until the 19th century. But their culture lived for thousands of years, first through the Akkadians, then the Assyrians, and then the Babylonians. The Babylonians passed their inventions and traditions through along Hebrew, Greek, and Roman cultures, and some even persist today.